I happened to find myself alone in a classroom while they're doing construction on my room, and so I'm going to see how far I can get on this before another class comes in. So I got lucky. So this is the IB style of teaching vectors. A scalar is a quantity with just magnitude. So that's everything you've known up to this point. The number 4 has magnitude, but it has no direction. A vector is a quantity with both direction and magnitude. Okay, so this right here represents a vector. It's got a certain magnitude, a certain length, and it's going in a particular direction. We draw these in the same way that we would draw a ray in geometry. So like if I had a ray in geometry, I say this is ray AB. Well, it keeps going forever and ever and ever. We don't, like, a ray and a vector are not the same thing. A vector is saying that I start at A and I'm going in the direction of B, which is why I put an arrow on it, but it stops when it gets to B, or stops when it gets to wherever you need it to stop. But a ray keeps going. The good news is that we don't mix these two. Okay. So if I look at this one right here, this, I could label it. Sometimes they get labeled on the side. That could be vector A, and I tend to write it that way where I don't draw out the rest of the angle or the rest of the arrow because I'm lazy, efficient. Another way that we would say it is that it began at A, goes to B, and so I would draw it something like that, telling me where it starts and where it stops. So here's the name of that particular vector, but I want to know how far did I move in the x direction and how far did I move in the y direction to get there. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. So the IB style way of writing a vector in component form is that we went 7 units in the x direction, and then we went 1, 2, 3 units in the y direction. And we write them like that, which is sort of similar to a matrix, except a matrix, when if I had a matrix, I would write it like 7, 3 like this. Well, our vectors, we're going to kind of round that out and say 7, 3. Okay, that's what it's closest to. Don't put a line there. It's not a fraction. Pre-cal and maybe physics, I don't know. I don't teach physics. They would write it this way. They would say it's 7 units in the x direction and 3 units in the y direction. My kids in the past have called those pointices because they look like parentheses, but they come to a point. I find that the IB style is more efficient for doing different operations, but I wanted you to be familiar with that. Okay, so next thing, we want to talk about a unit vector. Well, a unit vector, if you remember the unit circle, it's called the unit circle because everything is, well, its radius is 1 unit. So a unit vector is any vector with a magnitude of 1. Okay, any vector with a magnitude of 1. So it could be going 1 unit that way, it could be going 1 unit this way, it could be going, coming off the page 1 unit, it just, as long as it has a magnitude of 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to define a few of them. So the vector 1, 0 means that it's gone 1 unit in the x and 0 in the y. This we're going to call vector I. Sometimes I start to leave off the little arrow, but you'll know in the context what I mean, and then when I type it, it's going to be bold. Also, the vector 0, 1 is the vector j. So that's gone 1 unit in the y direction is j, 1 unit in the x direction is I. And when we get to 3 dimensions, 1 unit in the z direction is going to be the letter k, which is our favorite letter. Okay, so what I can do coming back here is I notice that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 little i's. This is 7i. And then I've come up 1, 2, 3, j. Hi. And so I can say that this is vector 7i plus 3j. I will see if I have time to make another video for you, but that will get you started.